Your bride's with me. In Vegas? My best man. Texted while I was fixing my tie. I didn't reply. I just walked into our wedding venue, where 300 guests were waiting, exposed everything I knew, and kept the party going. They showed up an hour later, panicking. All right, Reddit. The thing about betrayal? Nobody warns you about it. It just kicks down your door while you're brushing your teeth and wondering if the caterers remembered you're allergic to shellfish. Grab your popcorn and enjoy the shit show. This one is absolutely wild. I'm Daniel, 31 male. I was in the groom's suite at Oakwood Estate, messing with my tie for what felt like the 100th time because my hands wouldn't quit shaking. 4 years with Brielle, 8 months engaged, and somehow this incredible woman said yes. Through the French doors, I could see our ceremony setup looking like something out of those wedding magazines Brielle was always shoving in my face. 300 white chairs lined up perfect, that massive floral arch that needed a damn crane to install, and servers already walking around with drinks. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, turns out. Here's what you need to know. Zach and I ran Northline Creative, a marketing agency we'd built from nothing after college. We survived on ramen and Red Bull for 2 years, sleeping on office couches and cold calling prospects until we finally started landing the big corporate accounts. Nike regional campaigns, tech startups, that craft brewery account that put us on the map. We were pulling in close to 2 million annually now, split 50-50. Zach was going to be my best man, obviously. The guy who'd been there since day one, who helped me practice my proposal speech until I could say it in my sleep. My phone buzzed on the marble counter. Zach's name lit up the screen. Good news, brother. Your girl's with me. We tied the knot in Vegas last night. Thanks for the bachelor party inspiration. Gave us the perfect cover story. Don't worry about the honeymoon tickets. We'll figure out the money situation eventually. Probably. I stared at the screen until the words started swimming around. Read it again, slower this time. Like maybe I'd completely lost my ability to read English. Zach Mercer, my college roommate, my business partner, the guy who was supposed to hand me the rings in 90 minutes, the guy I'd trusted with half my company, my bachelor party planning, and apparently my entire future. Before I could even start processing this shit show, my phone rang. Brielle's mom, Lillian. Daniel, son? Lillian's voice had that fake, cheerful tone people use when they're about to ruin your life but want to sound nice about it. I just wanted to mention, well, I do hope you kept the receipt for that engagement ring. Brielle's going to need some time to figure things out. You understand. Click. She actually hung up on me. I stood there holding my phone like it might explode. Outside, guests were still showing up. My uncle's truck pulling up next to Lillian's pristine Mercedes, women in summer dresses. 300 people. $85,000. My entire family flew in from 4 different states. The smart move would have been to cancel everything. Send everyone home with apologies and whatever dignity I had left. Lock myself in the nearest dive bar and drink until I forgot my own name. But here's the thing. I'd spent 4 years listening to Brielle's endless lectures about living your truth and authentic self-expression, and having the courage to choose love over convention. She had 23,000 Instagram followers who ate up every inspirational quote she posted about taking control of your narrative and refusing to let other people write your story. Time to take control of mine. My brother Kevin knocked on the door. Hey man, you almost ready? People are starting to ask questions about why the bride's family looks like they're at a funeral. Kevin was 2 years older, built like he still played college football, and had always been the one to call BS. He took one look at my face and his expression changed. What happened? I handed him my phone. He read Zach's message twice, then looked at me with that expression he'd worn since we were kids, the one that meant someone was about to get their ass kicked. Well, he said, this should be interesting. I walked to the full-length mirror and stared at the guy looking back at me, the same person who woke up that morning thinking he was about to marry his soulmate. But something had shifted underneath, something way deeper than what you could see in a reflection. Kevin was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. So what's the play here, little brother? I'm going to tell everyone exactly what happened. All of them? Right now? Yup. Kevin grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. This is going to be epic. You want backup? Just watch for Brielle's dad. He looks like he might try to tackle me if this goes sideways. I straightened my tie one last time and walked out to face the music, Kevin trailing behind me like my personal bodyguard. The ceremony space looked like Pinterest had thrown up all over it. The string quartet was doing final sound checks. Completely clueless, they were about to provide the soundtrack to the most spectacular wedding implosion in recent history. The lead violinist spotted me and raised her bow, ready to start the processional. She was totally unaware she was about to witness something that would get talked about at industry events for years. I waved her off and walked straight to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. My voice carried across the space. Every head turned toward me. Confused faces. People checking their phones, wondering why the ceremony was starting without any of the usual pomp and circumstance. My grandfather was in the second row, looking worried like maybe his grandson was having some kind of breakdown. Kevin had positioned himself where he could see Brielle's entire family, ready to step in if anyone got ideas. I need to share some news with you. About 40 minutes ago, I got a text from my best man, Zach, letting me know that he and Brielle eloped last night in Las Vegas. The silence was so complete, you could have heard a pin drop. I watched 300 people try to process what I'd just said. Faces went from confusion to shock to something like horror in real time. Brielle's grandmother actually gasped and grabbed her chest like she was having a heart attack. My cousin's wife grabbed her husband's arm so hard he yelped, "Now I know what you're thinking." Poor Daniel left at the altar. How embarrassing. How humiliating. I paused, making eye contact with Lillian, who looked like she wanted to disappear. And you're absolutely right. It is embarrassing. But here's what I figured out. The whispers started then, a low murmur rippling through the crowd like a wave building steam. A server dropped something in the catering area, the crash echoing across the suddenly electric atmosphere. I figured out that Brielle and Zach just did me the biggest favor of my entire life. That got a reaction. Phones started appearing. That telltale glow of camera apps opening. Perfect. See, for 4 years, I thought I was in love with someone who actually gave a damn about honesty, loyalty, working through problems instead of running away. My phone was buzzing like crazy against my chest. Probably Brielle and Zach frantically trying to do damage control. Too late for that, kids. Turns out I was in love with a performance. A damn good performance, I'll give her that. But still just an act. Kevin caught my eye from the side and gave me a subtle thumbs up. The crowd was completely hooked now, leaning forward like they were watching their favorite TV show. Brielle spent 4 years showing me exactly who she thought I wanted her to be while carefully hiding who she actually was. And Zach? Well, Zach's been showing me his true colors for years. I just kept making excuses because I thought loyalty meant pretending not to notice when people consistently screw you over. Here's where things get really interesting, because what I was about to tell this crowd would basically change how they saw both Brielle and Zach forever. I want to tell you all something about the kind of people Brielle and Zach really are when they think nobody is watching. Kevin had moved closer to the front, positioned between me and Brielle's family, like he was expecting trouble. Let me start with Brielle's real personality. Last month, she went off on a teenage barista for 5 minutes because her latte had oat milk instead of almond milk. Made the girl cry. When I said maybe she was overreacting a bit, she told me the girl needed to learn consequences for being incompetent. Lillian was staring at her hands. Oh, and 3 weeks ago, she threw a full glass at our living room wall because I mentioned that maybe spending $3,000 on throw pillows was a little much. The stain's still there. I kept meaning to repaint it. The crowd was dead silent, except for the soft sound of people sniffling. Angry sniffling on my behalf. She's been cutting me off from everyone I care about. She convinced me my college friends were holding me back professionally. She said my family was too unsophisticated for her vision of our life together. She made my mom cry at Christmas dinner by telling her the ham was overcooked and the decorations looked cheap. My mom was in the front row now. She was nodding like she was finally allowed to admit what had happened. But here's my favorite Brielle story. 2 months ago, we were at dinner with her book club friends. Fancy restaurant, expensive drinks, the whole show. One of her friends mentioned she was struggling financially after her divorce. Brielle's response was to say the woman should have married better the first time, then spent 10 minutes explaining how she'd never let herself end up in such an embarrassing situation. The murmur from the crowd was getting louder, angrier. When I pulled Brielle aside later and said that was pretty cruel, she told me I was being too sensitive and that successful people don't coddle failure. Apparently, empathy is for losers. Kevin was watching Brielle's dad, who looked torn between being pissed and ashamed. Smart money was still on Kevin if things got physical. Now let me tell you about Zach's recent business activities. Zach Mercer has been stealing from our company for 8 months, forging my signature on expense reports, billing fake client meetings, moving payments to his personal account. The crowd was getting restless now, murmuring angrily. This wasn't just personal drama anymore. The whole shit show was unfolding. He's been trying to sell our client database to our biggest competitors. He went to our mentor Bill Chapman about forcing me out of my own company so he could steal the business we built together. Bill Chapman stood up slowly. At 65, he commanded respect in our industry. And when he spoke, everyone listened. That boy's been shopping your client list around town for months. Told people you were unreliable and that he was looking for a way out. I should have warned you sooner. Kevin stepped forward. Since we're sharing, I've got something to add. Zach borrowed $15,000 from me 6 months ago. Said it was for a family emergency. Turns out he spent it on a trip to Europe with Brielle while Daniel was taking care of his sick grandfather. The hits kept coming. My college roommate Dylan stood up. Zach's been telling people around town that Daniel's agency was failing and that he was the real talent behind the business. He tried to steal 3 of your clients last month. Story after story came out. Brielle's entitled behavior, Zach's systematic betrayal, months of lies and manipulation and theft. Every person who spoke looked relieved, like they'd been carrying secrets they could finally dump. Rachel, our creative director, stood up next. She'd been quiet until now, but I could see her making a decision. I need to say something about the business side of this, she announced, her voice carrying across the crowd. Zach Mercer has been forging Daniel's signature on expense reports for 8 months. I have copies of everything. The fake receipts, the altered invoices, the phantom client billings. He's stolen almost $40,000 from the company account. She pulled out a thick folder from her purse. I've been documenting everything because I knew eventually Daniel would need proof. Zach approached 3 of our biggest competitors about selling our client database and our proprietary campaign strategies. I have the email chains going back 4 months. People were standing now, craning their necks to see better, phones recording every word. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Here's what really happened yesterday. Zach didn't just decide to elope with my fiancé on a whim. They've been planning this for months. Brielle's been cheating on me with multiple people for the past year. Mia, Brielle's younger sister, suddenly stood up. Her voice was shaky but determined. Daniel's right. Brielle keeps a burner phone in her car. She's been bragging to me about how easy it is to fool him. She said he was too boring and trusting to ever figure it out. Lillian looked like she wanted to crawl under her chair and die. She told me the only reason she was marrying Daniel was for financial security. She wanted to quit her job and focus on her future. She said once she had his ring and his name, she could do whatever she wanted because guys like Daniel never leave. The crowd was beyond restless now. The anger in the air was almost thick enough to cut. But yesterday, Zach made her a better offer. He convinced her they could steal the business together, sell it, and live off the money while building their own competing agency. They saw me as a resource to be used. I raised my champagne glass. So here's to authentic living, to people who show you exactly who they are before you waste any more time on them, and to the fact that sometimes the trash takes itself out. What happened after the toast was something I never could have predicted. Instead of the formal reception Brielle had planned, it turned into this organic celebration where people actually wanted to be there. But about 2 hours into the unofficial party, things got really interesting. Brielle showed up. She burst through the entrance, still wearing her rumpled Vegas wedding dress. Makeup streaked down her face. Zach trailing behind her, looking like he'd been awake for 36 hours straight. The entire room went silent as 300 people turned to stare at the woman who'd just become the most hated person in the county. Brielle was clearly drunk or high on something. Her movements were all over the place. Her voice slurred around the edges. She'd probably been drinking for hours, working up the courage to come back and face everyone. Zach looked sober but terrified, like he was starting to realize just how badly they'd screwed up. She stumbled a bit as she pointed at me, nearly losing her balance in those ridiculously expensive heels. Her designer dress, the one she'd spent months obsessing over, was stained with what looked like gas station nachos and cheap champagne from their Vegas celebration. "You asshole!" Brielle screamed across the room, pointing at me like I was responsible for global warming. "You had no right to tell them any of that." Kevin immediately stepped between us, but I waved him off. This was going to be good. Actually, I had every right. It's all true. "You ruined my life." Her voice was shrill, desperate. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my reputation?" "Your reputation as what exactly? A cheater? A thief? Someone who treats service workers like garbage?" I stayed calm. It was clearly driving her insane. "I loved you," she shrieked. "Everything I did was because I loved you. You loved my bank account. There's a difference." Zach tried to step forward, but Kevin shifted slightly, and Zach suddenly found somewhere else to be. My brother didn't say a word, but the message was crystal clear. "You can't just destroy people's lives because your feelings got hurt," Brielle continued, her voice getting higher and more hysterical. "I made one mistake, one moment of weakness." I laughed, and I could hear it echo off the walls. "Brielle, you've been cheating on me for over a year. You helped Zach steal from our business. You've been planning to leave me for months while pretending to plan our wedding. That's a lifestyle choice. She looked around the room desperately, searching for sympathy, but found only hostile stares and people recording her meltdown. You people don't understand, she said, addressing the crowd like she was giving some kind of TED talk. Relationships are complicated. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices. Sometimes you have to follow your heart. Your heart led you to Vegas with my business partner and $30,000 of stolen money, I replied. Very romantic. That money wasn't stolen. Zach earned that money. By forging my signature and billing fake expenses, that's literally the definition of theft. Her mask was cracking in real time. The sweet, supportive fiancé act she'd kept up for 4 years was dissolving into pure, entitled rage. Fine, she snarled. You want to know the truth? You were boring, Daniel. Boring and predictable and safe. Do you have any idea how exhausting it was pretending to be interested in your little marketing campaigns and your precious family dinners? I was dying of boredom. The room was dead silent except for the sound of phones recording what would become the most viral wedding video of the year. I settled for you because I thought you'd give me a stable life while I built my brand. But Zach showed me I could have excitement and security. He actually gets ambition. He gets embezzlement, I said. Also, not the same thing. You think you're so much better than everyone else with your moral high ground and your perfect little principles. But you know what? You're just weak. You're weak and boring, and that's why I had to find real men to make me feel alive. Kevin took a step forward. Might want to watch your tone there, princess. Brielle whirled on him. Oh, look, big brother riding to the rescue. What are you gonna do, beat me up? Real classy. Nah, Kevin said with that dangerous smile he'd perfected. I don't hit women. But I might just call your employer and let them know about your little outburst. You still work at that wellness center, right? The one that's all about positive energy and treating people with respect? Her face went white. You wouldn't? Try me. Zach finally found his voice. Look, everyone just needs to calm down. This is getting out of hand. Out of hand? Bill Chapman stood up, all 65 years and industry reputation behind his voice. Son, you stole money from your business partner and tried to sell confidential client information to competitors. The only thing out of hand here is that you're not already in handcuffs. I didn't steal anything, Zach said weakly. It was a cash flow issue. I was going to pay it back. With what money? The proceeds from selling our client database? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. Because I have the email chains where you offered to sell Callaway Industrial Marketing Strategy to their biggest competitor for $50,000. Zach's face crumbled. How did you get those? Rachel's been documenting your criminal activity for months. Turns out when you're planning to screw over your business partner, you shouldn't do it in front of the creative director who actually has integrity. Brielle was boiling now, her voice getting more shrill by the second. This is insane! You're all acting like I committed a crime. I fell in love with someone else. It happens. People change. Relationships end. People fall out of love. I'm not the villain here. You're right, I said. Falling in love with someone else isn't villainous, but cheating for a year while planning a wedding is? Helping your boyfriend steal from the man you're supposed to marry is? Treating everyone around you like they exist solely for your benefit is. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to find some angle that would let her salvage this. You know what? She said finally. I'm glad this happened. I'm glad I found out who you really are before I wasted my entire life married to someone so vindictive and cruel. Zach and I are going to be happy together, and you're going to be alone and bitter, and nobody's going to remember your name. Maybe, I said, but at least I won't be a felon. That's when things got really, really interesting. The next morning, Zach made his first big mistake. Instead of lying low and hoping the legal situation would somehow go away, he decided to go on offense. He called an emergency meeting with our 3 biggest clients, claiming I was having a mental health crisis and that he needed to take over the agency to protect their accounts. He told them I was emotionally unstable and making erratic business decisions that could hurt their campaigns. What Zach didn't realize was that Rachel had already called all our clients the night before to give them a professional heads up about what was going down. She'd shown them documented evidence of his theft and explained that their accounts would keep running smoothly under my management. So when he showed up to Callaway Industrial at 8 a.m. expecting sympathy and new contracts, he instead found himself face-to-face with their head of marketing, their CEO, and 2 lawyers. Mr. Mercer, the lead lawyer said, sliding a thick folder across the conference table. We understand you've been trying to sell confidential information about our campaigns to our competitors. We have email evidence of you offering our complete marketing strategy to Carrington Group for $50,000. We'll be filing criminal charges this afternoon. Zach's face went white. He started stammering about misunderstandings and exploratory conversations, but the lawyers weren't buying it. We also found the fake billing invoices you submitted for the strategy retreat that never happened, the CEO added. $15,000 for services you never provided. That's wire fraud, Mr. Mercer. A federal crime? Rachel had done her homework. She'd spent the previous evening calling every single client, armed with documentation of Zach's criminal behavior. By the time Zach started making his panic calls, the clients already knew everything and had picked sides. Kevin, who'd basically appointed himself my unofficial bodyguard and business advisor, was with me when Zach called panicking. Daniel, you gotta call off Callaway Industrial. They're saying they're gonna prosecute. This is getting out of hand. You tried to sell their marketing strategy to their biggest competitor for $50,000, I said calmly. What exactly did you think was gonna happen? I never actually sold anything. Those were just exploratory conversations. Conspiracy to commit corporate espionage is still a felony, Zach. But hey, maybe the judge will appreciate your restraint. Kevin was enjoying this way too much. Tell him about Carrington Group, he said loud enough for Zach to hear. Oh, right. Carrington Group also wants to have a chat with you about the fake billing invoices you submitted for services that never happened. Turns out when you bill a company for a 3-day strategy retreat that never existed, they notice eventually. The silence on his end was deafening. How much do you actually owe, Zach? I asked. Because I'm counting $30,000 from our business account, $15,000 from Kevin, $25,000 in fake billing to Henderson, and whatever you borrowed from Brielle's trust fund that her dad's probably just figuring out about now. Brielle doesn't have a trust fund, Zach said weakly. She does, actually. Her grandmother left her $50,000 last year. Brielle never mentioned it? Weird, since you're soulmates and all. Kevin was grinning like Christmas had come early. Sounds like your new wife has some trust issues of her own. But Zach wasn't done trying to save his ass. His next move was even more desperate. He hired a lawyer, not a good one, apparently, and tried to sue me for wrongful termination and defamation. His argument was that I damaged his reputation by publicly exposing his criminal behavior, and that he was entitled to half the value of the business we'd built together. The lawyer's letter was a masterpiece of legal incompetence. It claimed that Zach's indiscretions were private matters that didn't affect his professional capabilities, and that my vindictive public statements had caused irreparable harm to his earning potential. Kevin read the letter and started laughing. This guy's lawyer is worse than his business ethics. My lawyer, an actual competent one, was less amused. This is the dumbest lawsuit I've seen in 20 years of practice, she said. He's basically arguing that he has the right to commit crimes without consequences as long as he doesn't get caught right away. Can we countersue? Kevin asked. Oh, we're going to do much better than that. Within a week, we'd filed criminal complaints with the DA, civil suits for theft and breach of fiduciary duty, and reported Zach to every professional organization he belonged to. We also sent detailed reports to the IRS about his unreported income from fake billing schemes. Dude was about to get cooked very well. The paperwork alone filled 3 boxes. Rachel had been methodical in her documentation. Screenshots of forged signatures, copies of fake invoices, email chains showing Zach's attempts to sell client information, bank records showing suspicious transfers. My lawyer called it the most well-documented case of business fraud she'd seen in 20 years. Zach's world started collapsing faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. His business license got suspended within 72 hours. The state marketing board revoked his professional certifications and sent notices to every member company warning about his criminal behavior. The Better Business Bureau flagged him in their system. But the real death blow came when the IRS audit started. Turns out Zach had been reporting the stolen money as legitimate income, but failing to pay taxes on it. Tax evasion on top of wire fraud meant federal charges were coming. His apartment lease got terminated when the background check company told his landlord about the pending criminal charges. His car got repossessed when he couldn't make payments without access to the business accounts he'd been draining. His credit cards got frozen when the banks saw the fraud alerts. But the real kick in the teeth came when Carrington Group's lawyers dug deeper into Zach's billing records and discovered he'd been running fake invoice schemes with multiple clients for over a year. The total was close to $200,000. Federal wire fraud, my lawyer explained cheerfully. Multiple counts. He's looking at serious prison time. Kevin had started keeping a running tally of Zach's legal problems on a whiteboard in my office. Criminal theft, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, tax evasion, and my personal favorite, being married to Brielle Mercer. The last one isn't illegal, I pointed out. Give it time. While Zach was learning that crime doesn't pay and lawyers are expensive, Brielle was finding out that the internet has a very long memory and zero tolerance for entitled BS. The video of her meltdown at the reception had gone nuclear on social media. 300,000 views in the first week. It was shared across every platform and turned into memes. Her Instagram follower count became a real-time spectacle. People started posting screenshots as her numbers dropped, 23,000 to 18,000 to 12,000 to 8,000. Each day brought fresh bleeding as brands pulled sponsorship deals and followers jumped ship. The yoga studio where she taught classes didn't just ask her to take a leave of absence. They posted a public statement distancing themselves from her behavior after 36 students complained. But instead of laying low and waiting for it to blow over, Girl decided to double down. She hired a reputation management company, one of those sleazy firms that specializes in scrubbing negative content from the internet. They charged her $5,000 upfront to rebuild her digital brand. The company's strategy was to flood social media with positive content about Brielle's journey and growth. They created fake testimonials, bought bot followers, and tried to bury the negative stories with manufactured content. It backfired real quick when people discovered the fake accounts and started exposing the entire thing. She posted a long Instagram story about how she was the real victim in the situation, how I was controlling and manipulative, and how she'd finally found the courage to escape an emotionally abusive relationship. The internet's response was brutal. Her comment section became a war zone. But Brielle wasn't done making things worse for herself. She started a podcast called Living My Truth, where she planned to tell her side of the story and rebuild her personal brand. The first episode was titled, I Shid You Not, Escaping Toxic Love, My Journey to Authentic Happiness. Kevin and I listened to it together, taking notes like we were studying for a final exam. Bruh, she's actually claiming that you financially controlled her, Kevin said, pausing the audio. She says you made her ask permission to buy coffee. I asked her to discuss purchases over $1,000 since we were saving for a house, I replied. Apparently, fiscal responsibility is abuse now. The podcast lasted exactly 3 episodes before the platform started removing it for violating their terms of service. Turns out, when you spend 45 minutes accusing someone of such a thing without any evidence, and that someone has documented proof of your actual behavior, the platforms take a dim view of your content. Brielle's final Instagram post was a masterpiece. I'm taking a break from social media to focus on my healing journey and my marriage to Zach. To everyone who has sent me hate and death threats, I hope you find peace in your lives. To Daniel and his family, I forgive you for trying to destroy my reputation. Zach and I are proof that sometimes you have to fight for your happiness. The post got 15,000 comments before she turned them off. Kevin screenshotted his favorite responses and started a group chat with our family called Brielle's Greatest Hits. But the universe wasn't done with Brielle Mercer yet. 2 weeks after the podcast debacle, her new husband, Captain Save-A-Ho, got arrested by federal agents at their apartment. Turns out wire fraud across state lines gets the FBI's attention, especially when you're dumb enough to use email to coordinate your activities. Brielle called me crying, actually sobbing, asking if I could talk to the prosecutors and help Zach because they were soulmates, and this was all a misunderstanding. Brielle, I said, Zach stole almost $200,000 from multiple companies over 18 months. The FBI doesn't arrest people for misunderstandings. But he was going to pay it back. He just needed time to build the business. What business? The one where you steal money from your clients? She hung up on me, but not before screaming that I was heartless and vindictive and that she hoped I was happy. Well, I was very happy. Kevin was listening on speaker. Think she's starting to realize Zach might not be the upgrade she thought he was. Give it another week. She hasn't hit rock bottom yet. I was right. 6 months later, Zach Mercer pled guilty to wire fraud, theft, and conspiracy charges. By the time the auditors were done, fake invoices across clients totaled $197,000, plus $40,000 in internal skims, $237,000 before fees. That became the restitution number. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay full restitution, $237,000, plus damages and legal fees. Since Zach had approximately $400 to his name and no legitimate job prospects, the restitution was going to take a while, like several decades. Brielle filed for divorce 3 days after his sentencing. Turns out, till death do us part doesn't include till federal prison do us part. She tried to get alimony, claiming she'd given up her career to support Zach's business ventures. The judge was not impressed, especially when my lawyer presented evidence showing that Zach's business ventures were criminal enterprises and that Brielle had knowingly helped with them. The divorce was finalized in record time. Brielle got exactly nothing except her legal bills and a record for accessory to wire fraud. But the real justice came in smaller, more satisfying ways. Brielle had to move back in with her parents because she couldn't afford rent. Lillian, who'd spent years enabling her daughter's entitled behavior, suddenly found herself housing a bitter, unemployed woman who blamed everyone else for her problems. The wellness center where Brielle had taught yoga not only fired her, but also sued her for breach of contract and damage to their reputation. She tried to get jobs at other studios, but the internet is forever, and HR departments know how to use Google. Nobody wanted to hire someone whose meltdown video had gone viral and whose name was basically synonymous with betrayal and entitlement. Zach's prison experience wasn't going much better. Turns out white-collar criminals aren't exactly the kings of the federal prison system, especially when they're serving time for stealing from their best friends. Kevin had started calling him Inmate Mercer and asking if I wanted to send him care packages. Maybe some soap on a rope? I hear that's practical. Meanwhile, my life was getting better in ways I never could have imagined. Rachel and I had restructured the agency as equal partners. Without Zach's constant undermining and criminal behavior, we landed 3 major accounts in the first quarter. Our reputation in the industry actually improved after the story got out. Bill Chapman joined us as senior advisor and brought 2 more major clients with him. I always knew that boy was poison, he said about Zach. Just took you a while to see it. Kevin had taken a leave of absence from his own job to help me manage the legal fallout and business transition. Somewhere along the way, he'd decided he liked the marketing world and asked if we had room for a director of business development. We did. A year after the wedding that wasn't, I met Leah. She was at the children's hospital where we were running a charity campaign. Kind, genuine, completely uninterested in social media drama or expensive weddings or being the center of the universe. We've been together for 6 months now. She likes my family, genuinely enjoys spending time with them. She thinks Kevin's jokes are funny, and my mom's cooking is amazing. She's met Rachel and thinks she's brilliant. She has opinions about marketing campaigns and actually listens when I talk about work stress. It's wonderfully boring in the best possible way. No drama, no secrets. Just 2 people who actually like each other building something real together. Zach called me 2 years into his sentence. I almost didn't answer the unknown number, but the petty side of me made me pick up. I wanted to hear the misery in his voice, and I did. His voice was different, smaller, broken. Prison had apparently taught him some humility. Daniel, it's Zach. I didn't say anything. Look, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking a lot in here. About what we had before everything went to hell. Still nothing from me. We were brothers, man. Best friends. Business partners. We built something real together. I screwed up, I know that, but one woman isn't worth destroying what we had. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. I get out in 18 months, he continued, desperation creeping into his voice. We could rebuild. Start over. I learned my lesson, I swear. I'll pay back every penny. We can be partners again. More silence. He was practically begging now. Say something, man. Please. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. I took a breath. Zach? Yeah? You made your bed. Now lie in it. I hung up and blocked the number. The best revenge really is living well. But having all the receipts and a good lawyer doesn't hurt either. Thanks for listening. Peace out, Reddit. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.